All right, guys, another episode of the Ice Team podcast. We're coming at you from Clam Outdoors here in Rogers, Minnesota. And we want to come at you. We've done 14. This is our 14th episode of the season, Drew. Is that about right?
Yep.
So number 14. So I feel like we're a little ahead of where we were last year. That's okay. We got a lot more good stuff coming at you. We got two awesome guests here. And the idea behind this one is we're all getting ready for Christmas break. We got a couple more days left here in the office. We're shutting down for a few days so we can go enjoy Christmas with our families. So it's kind of a Christmas special. A thank you to everybody that's been listening and watching. And then we grabbed a couple of victims here from the Clam offices.
Well, let's be honest with the listeners, Matt. We had Mike Roger teed up for this one. He's an Ice Team Clam Pro.
Long time
pro.
Not
that we don't want Mark and Ryan on the podcast, but we're like, God, we still want to do a podcast so we don't go 2 weeks without a podcast, over the holidays. And we're like, well, there's some cool people around Clam.
Yeah, that's not what you told me about Mark.
Well, not Mark.
Like Mark?
Yeah, exactly. Ryan, cool. Mark.
We're just Mark, like the backup's backup, basically.
Yeah. Well, we had Mark working pretty hard yesterday in here for some quick set stuff with Troy and everything.
You can't pan the camera against our back wall, can you? Mr. Polar trailer right there.
Mr. Back there. We might. I'll see if I can splice something in later.
Look at that. Look at that guy.
Yeah. So let's introduce our two guests here. So here we have Ryan Schone. Ryan, you are on the sales team at Clam.
Correct. Yep.
We'll jump into what exactly you do, but prior to Clam, you were working at Shields Retail.
Yep.
Eau Claire College, right?
Yep.
Ryan's a total outdoorsman. You're into hunting. You're teaching me stuff. Obviously into fishing. So just like a lot of people at Clam, everyone's pretty well-versed in the outdoor industry. Mark, you want to introduce yourself a little bit, some of your background?
Yeah, my name is Mark Sandquist. Worked at Clam here, I think about 6 years.
Yeah.
About 5+ years working in customer service with our buddy Thane Jensen. Transitioned a little bit to operations. I like the sound better.
That was Thane. That's for Thane.
I like it. Transitioned a little bit. Now I work in the operations team, doing more like product inspections, quality control type stuff. It's been a great time, fun transition.
I think that's cool how you started in customer service, because even yesterday, we needed some people to talk about quick sets. We all know our products pretty darn well, but if you worked in customer service, you really know the products well because you're asked all the questions, right?
You learn about it pretty quick. Whether you know anything about it going into it or not, you got to learn it. So
and that's not just quick. That's everything. It was funny.
Everything at Clam.
We're talking about the quick set pavilion, and I'm like, it's got the 6 sides, whatever. I know I can read the bullet points from the deck, but Mark is like, I know everything plus all the questions that people talk about that no one ever hears, right? You're getting all these questions at customer service that you're like, I can talk about this. Yep, I can talk about this. And you just kept going and going and going because you've been asked all those questions. And it's kind of cool how that translates from your time at customer service to now in R&D. So we're not just people, average people. We actually use the products, know the stuff, know the ins and outs. And
I think it's cool that Ryan's background prior to here was retail, Mark in customer service. And I've always said this, and I think we've talked about this in other episodes. If you have a customer service background or retail background, I think you're so much more fluent in this industry. I'm a firm believer in that. I think because then you understand all sides. From Ryan's perspective, worked retail, helped customers, understands that. What does he do now for Clam? Works in the sales and retail side. Mark, customer service, understands what the customer wants, what works, what doesn't work. Now he graduated into an R&D position. It just makes perfect sense. And I know when I worked at Thorne, I will not ever replace those days because it gave me the information and the composure to be able to talk to customers and do that. And then realistically understand it. You put yourself in their shoes, and it's a cliche term. We always say, put yourself in that person's shoes. Well, you kind of have. So that's cool. I think it's neat to hear that. And you, Mark, you got brought on customer service during an era at Clam where it was nuts. Not that it's not crazy now, but we've developed systems, right, in customer service to make our job easier. I take, for example, I remember order entry. Don't leave. Okay, stay here. I'm going to mention order entry for a second. I remember at times during the busy season when they used to key hand orders. Didn't we have a 3-foot tall stack? I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. It's gotten a lot more automated now. Almost everything was done by hand when I first started, so a little more tedious, a lot of long nights, extra hours, especially during that busy ice season.
And when you type at 9 words a minute, how did you get that done?
Just a lot of hunting, pecking.
Sweet. And Ryan, man, dude, I admire the heck out of you. And I want to say this before we move on. We had the St. Paul Ice Show a few weeks ago. And I'm a big believer like in unsung heroes, right? People that do all this stuff that you never see. And I made a comment during one of our either morning or evening speeches. And I was like, did anyone see Ryan Schone? And some guys raised their hand because I don't think they understood my question. I'm like, none of you saw him because he was just a blur running around from retailer to retailer, running to the semi and doing all this kinds of stuff. So maybe you want to jump a little bit into, maybe a little bit of your background from a fishing world, like what got you into fishing. And then I think we should let some people know some of the fun things you get to do here at Clam.
Yeah. So for me, I think like a lot of people, it kind of started as a kid, actually Lake Susan down in Chanhassen. My mom used to take me down to the fishing pier down there, can of corn, bucket of worms, go down to the dock for a couple hours on a Saturday or Sunday, and then from there, you get to talking with people at the dock, and people are catching bass, and you're like, man, catching these bluegills is fun, but what are you using to catch those bass? And then from there, it just progressively gets...
Corn? We heard this story. Who talked about corn already?
On the podcast?
Yeah, someone mentioned about using corn. Sorry,
I don't know.
I digress. Keep going.
Yeah, man, frozen corn, it might
catches
be
everything, really.
Everything, yeah, and it's easy. Everybody's got corn in the freezer or the fridge. But yeah, from there, I actually moved down to Texas for a while with my dad's job. So I got really into bass fishing when I was down there, did a lot of that, and then decided to come back up to Wisconsin for school, and then kind of took the next leap in my fishing world and got into muskie fishing. So from there, I've kind of consider myself to be a diverse angler in that aspect, but now I spend most of my time muskie fishing in the summers and then bird hunting in the fall.
You were just bird hunting this last week.
Yeah, I've been this fall. The one thing is, yes, we don't have ice, but that opens the doors to other things. And I know Mark has probably done a lot of this too, but with the weather, you couldn't have asked for a better fall for the dogs and getting out bird hunting. I mean, everything's accessible. The weather's been great. Dogs love it. So we've spent a lot of time in the field this fall.
What's your biggest muskie?
Biggest is 48. I still haven't cracked 50, but much like a lot of muskie fishermen, I've had some heartbreaks of fish that were well over that mark right at the boat. But
And you have a favorite body of water? You don't need to give away any secrets, but like, do you have a body of water or a trip you like to go on every year muskie fishing that you just can't wait for?
I won't give out any specific lakes, but an area that is often overlooked and we take a trip to every year is Detroit Lakes up in Minnesota.
Sure.
A lot of guys know about it, but if you're going on a trip, you're thinking Lake of the Woods, Mille Lacs, Vermilion. Yep. So,
what's your dream? Do you have a dream location?
I haven't fished Lake of the Woods. I'd probably like to get up there. Otherwise, Eagle in Canada's big fish waters. So
solid. Mine would be like Great Lakes, like that way. But dude, I think it would intimidate me too much to know what I'm doing.
If anyone follows Brett Alexander on social media, like those muskies just look freakish, man. Like they look like they're eating salmon and like just big greasy butter balls compared to like probably your Wisconsin river type muskies.
Yeah,
I feel like that's like where the next record would come from.
Well, yeah, it's big water.
Yeah,
you know? Those things swim. We've talked about it on the podcast. Like those muskies, walleyes, they'll cover like 1,000 miles or something. You know, like just crazy studies they've seen on them things.
Huh.
Matt, I thought your destination location would just be Lake Minnetonka.
That's pretty solid.
You catch some giants out there.
He does
don't
it every
you?
single day.
Yeah, I mean, I just
Did you get like a 55?
56
56
on a frog.
Funny enough, wasn't a potential state record shocked out of there like
it was
a number of years ago?
Several times. There was somebody when I was working at Thorn that caught one that they figured to be 1 or 2 pounds shy, and it was caught in October, one bay over from where I caught mine. No, this would have been 15 years ago. Is it the same fish? Don't know. Mine was not super thick, and I can't take credit like I was muskie fishing. I was throwing a topwater frog in between some docks.
Yeah.
So it's not like anything crazy happened there, but there's some giants in that lake. I mean, well, a lot of the metro lakes, like Ryan, like there's a dozen metro lakes that hold muskies, and is it just me or I feel like I could be wrong? Is the muskie angling population declining? I don't feel like I see as many people throwing muskie lures as I did 10 years ago.
I think, honestly, the biggest hurdle with muskie fishing is there is a monetary aspect to it, unlike bass fishing or going out and fishing for bluegills, like a bait can run you 50,
Yeah.
60, 70 bucks.
point.
So I think that, and then along with like, you know, there's not really a shore aspect of muskie fishing unless you're doing the river rat stuff, but you have to almost be in a boat to be successful. And I think a lot of people who try it from shore just get discouraged early on, and you know.
Yeah.
What about just people's attention spans in general?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, I dabble in muskie fishing and, you know, cast for an hour and all right, time to go fish for walleyes or fish for bass or crappies, whatever.
Hey, Mark, squirrel. Yeah. No, muskies are a cool fish. I mean, they intrigue me. I mean, we were ice fishing a body of water yesterday, which I know there's a ton of muskies present, and we were on East Rush, and we had tip-ups out, and predator tip-ups, and a number of things, and every once in a while on your Vexlar or even your forward-facing sonar, you would see this mark come through. That, I mean, I haven't seen a pile of muskies on forward-facing sonar to where I'm like really, really, really dialed in, but I know what a bigger fish looks like. I mean, I was 100% convinced there was some roaming that bay out in front of Flickerberg's, 100%. Giants just cruising around, like 1 or 2 or 3 at a time.
I would bet you that there's a lot of big pike rolling through there too, though.
Yeah, that could be.
That I've seen on like lakes, like with my buddy. Like I have one buddy who's into spearing a lot, and the one day I threw up some tip ups, and he had his spear shack, and I'm like, dude, I'm not getting any flags. Like I had 2 flags up for 3 hours, and like normally one trips, you know, around the metro, you put like a smaller, medium sucker on, whatever, don't overthink it. Had nothing going, and he's like, dude, there are so many pike around here, man. Like I've seen like a couple dozen come through. I'm like, what? Like I haven't seen anything. Is they're just swimming through.
Yeah, and that's what they were doing yesterday. I mean, they didn't seem interested in anything. I mean, I know we watched some come up to a live minnow, the things we were jigging, and nothing. I mean, I think 5 or 6 times each of us would mark something on our Vex. So that clearing day was not a panfish. Huge mark, come up nice and slow, go away, come back. Go. That's something of a pike or muskie. And the only reason I thought there's some muskies there is like, of all the places I've seen muskies through the ice, early and late ice, it's that bay. Like, because you sight fish that bay quite a bit, and I've seen some big ones. Head in one hole, tail in the other, sit next to your buddy. Just cool looking fish. They're a different breed.
Yeah.
You're hunting. You're not fishing.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So Ryan the muskie guy.
Yeah.
Ryan's teaching me a few things about bird hunting recently, since I've also been trying to scratch the outdoorsman itch, and we've kind of had a tough fall, early winter here for ice, unfortunately. But I just bought a shotgun the other day, and I was at Cabela's today because I'm like, man, I need to get like some stuff for pheasants, like some rounds and stuff. And like I've been asking Ryan all week. I'm like, yeah, what do I need? What do I need? This lead, not lead, whatever. And I'm in Cabela's, and I'm like literally holding like 2 boxes of shells, and I'm just like, I probably look like just the dink who has no idea what he's doing, which I didn't. And Ryan's like, oh yeah, Drew, those ones on the right, that's one you want. I'm like, what? Where the heck did you come from? He's like, I saw your car. I knew exactly where you'd be. I'm like, yeah, you caught me.
Bismuth or tungsten? I heard that conversation the other day.
Well, we actually talked about that on the last podcast with John Crane, because we're talking about all these precious metals and stuff. And I know tungsten, I know lead, but the bismuth thing was new to me. I think today I bought lead because I'm just like, I don't need to spend $60 on a stinking box of shells. Like,
it's a bird.
But it depends where you're hunting, right? I mean, a lot of the public lands, like you have to use non-toxic shot. So it's either steel or bismuth, some sort of, non-toxic
a lot of the public lands,
option.
because Ryan told me that on WMAs in Minnesota, you can use lead.
Correct.
Right. It depends on the public land.
So I think it's
confusing.
defined as federal lands are non-toxic. So like
a waterfall production area.
Correct. A WPA, for instance, is a federally owned property. So
What's the difference? WMA, WPA?
It's the color on onyx of the
No,
land.
whatever. Yeah, I know
shade
more
of
than
green.
that. Water.
it's the intention of the land, I guess, would be the easiest way to put it. Like a
Yeah.
WPA is managed for waterfowl, whereas a WMA
They
is,
usually have some sort of open
Yeah.
water somewhere, a slough of some sort, lowland.
Yep.
There's not many
For waterfall
trees.
production.
WMA doesn't.
Wildlife
yeah.
management
wildlife
area.
management
Okay.
area. It could have water on it, but
But it's not their primary focus is
Correct.
management of waterfowl species.
yep.
Then you get into like northern Minnesota, where there's a lot of tax forfeit land, state land. There's national forests, and I guess I'm going to look at the regulations, obviously, but there's like certain rules for all that stuff, and sometimes it goes by county and all this crazy stuff. So
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, it's kind of like fishing, like Mille Lacs. You should probably know the walleye regulation on that specific lake, right? Before you just like start keeping walleyes. So
Yeah.
Yep.
So Drew, you're hunting this weekend?
Yeah.
You give it a shot?
Yep. I'm gonna
No
try
pun
it.
intended.
I hope I can actually hit one this time. I missed 2 pheasants, but I realized that it might be because I had the wrong kind of ammunition.
Yeah.
Potentially, maybe. Let's use that as an excuse.
And you got a cool dog.
2 cool dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna unleash those.
Buck's going to join?
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice. Was he there the other day or is
No, he was sleeping.
Yeah. Gus is a wild
Yeah,
man.
we got one who's just a psychotic 10 or 11-month-old golden, and then the other one's like a year and a half, and he's like your therapy dog. Like tomorrow he'd be a therapy dog all day. So we're gonna
Old
unleash.
soul.
Yeah, we're gonna unleash these 2 golden retrievers that don't really know what they're doing, and just see what happens. I don't know what I'm doing either, so we're all learning.
That's going to be fun. Do you guys, I assume you both hunt with dogs as well?
Yeah, I don't. I know Mark has a dog.
Yeah, I have a Brittany. She's more of a pointing breed dog. Not a whole lot for retrieving, but just loves getting out there for pheasants, grouse. Loves grouse hunting. Run around through the woods. But yeah, definitely try to get out a couple more times. She's not the biggest dog, so this lack of snow kind of helps her get around a little bit. You don't have to bust as many cattails. So
Yeah.
it's nicer for her, but it's just fun getting her out.
Yeah. So, Mark, how'd you get into fishing? We knew Ryan did the thing with corn and changed to bass, changed to muskies. That seems to be kind of a progression with the muskie world. It's pretty rare that you hear somebody that they just started fishing by starting for muskies, right? That's ends up being, I was a walleye guy, I was a bass guy, and then I started fishing for muskies, and I got hooked, and boom.
Yep.
So that story seems 100% believable. Not that I didn't believe you. Mark, what got you involved in fishing at a young age?
Yeah, kind of the same thing. My family has always fished. My immediate family, my dad taught me a lot about fishing. I finally remember, my grandpa bringing me down to the Crow River in town, in Watertown, where I grew up, and spent a lot of days there fishing the river for whatever bites. We also have like a deer hunting shack in northern Minnesota, kind of by Lake Winnebagosh. We usually take a lot of trips up there with the family in the summer. Did a lot of walleye fishing up there. So, yeah, that's kind of where I got hooked on it. Went to school out at Brookings in South Dakota State.
Okay.
There's actually a lot of lakes in eastern South Dakota, so spent a lot of time fishing there with buddies. Got on the big perch, walleyes, some really good opportunities out there.
That football team's pretty good right now.
They're amazing, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're playing for the national championship for the FCS stuff. So
That's the jackrabbit.
Yeah.
right?
I think they've won like 37 or 38 games in a row. So
Holy
they're
smokes.
Yeah, but they're not beating people. They are whooping people. Like
Demolishing.
they're winning by like 6 touchdowns in playoff games.
I know the last game they just played, they won. I think it was 59-0. I mean,
This is a
Like, you're
playoff
talking
game to go to the championship.
semifinals. They're
It's aggressive.
I mean,
good.
there's no way they're staying in that conference or that they got to be moving up a tier in Division 1.
Well, I mean, NDSU did that for years, and people thought the same thing, and
Really?
here they are, still
But
playing.
I
They
do
were
believe
that dominant?
Oh, NDSU won 5 or 6
Yeah.
national championships in a row, and they actually just lost in overtime last weekend to play SDSU in Frisco. So it would have been NDSU, SDSU.
So
in Frisco.
NDSU lost to the team
lost to Montana.
that
Yep.
SDSU just beat 59-0.
No.
Montana is playing SDSU.
Oh,
I
okay.
think this
So
weekend
this
or
is-
next weekend.
it's
maybe.
a couple weeks.
So this will be a real test for SDSU coming up.
Maybe
They
but,
were the
I mean,
number 2 ranked team in the country for.
Yeah, SDSU is good though. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I would always love to see a matchup against the Gophers. I truly think right now the Jackrabbits could beat the Gophers. I know they played them like 5 years ago, but SDSU was a different team back then. I think now I don't even know if the game would be close, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're kind of getting off into a weird tangent, so
That's
I'm gonna
cool, though.
keep going with it. How does how do the Jackrabbits or like NDSU, like how do they recruit over like you're an athlete going to the U or a bigger college, because they can compete? I mean, they play each other at times, right? Right?
Yeah, but there's different levels of Division 1, especially in football. Like UMM is at a different level. NCAA Division 1.
Yep.
Jackrabbits are what? It's a different
FBS
yes.
and FCS are the
Yeah,
two different.
there's 2 different levels of Division 1 college football. So they're both
Okay. I didn't know
technically
that.
on paper and on social media when you see people talk. I'm going D1, right?
Yeah.
It's a different level to go to like the Gophers.
Still very competitive though.
100%.
They're
Oh,
still
absolutely.
amazing football.
Like St.
players.
Thomas is another example. St. Thomas is now considered a D1 football program, but they wouldn't hold a candle to some of the true D1 programs, like a Wisconsin Badgers, a Gopher.
But guys can get still drafted in the NFL from the
Yeah.
smaller
Get drafted
schools,
in
right?
yeah, you can get drafted in a D2 school.
Dallas Goddard for the
D3,
Eagles.
dude. D3,
Yeah.
D3.
Yeah, like
yeah.
Thielen, obviously.
Yeah,
the
he was
prime
Mankato
example.
State, D3,
Just
or
cra-
D2, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
So there's a chance for anyone out there playing football to go pro.
Yeah,
You just gotta be good.
very true.
I mean, or you can be like Jimmy Kleinsasser and be D2, but be an absolute man child.
Hey, he could block.
He could do
He could
everything.
block.
Jimmy could do everything. That guy was good. Cool. So, all right, you got into a bunch of fishing, similar way. Do you still fish Winnie? Like, I love that lake.
I don't fish Winnie as much as some of the surrounding Itasca County lakes.
Like which ones?
I don't know if I want to go into those details, but
Oh, come
Mark's
on.
pretty
there's just-
tight-lipped.
yeah, a little bit. There's some really good walleye fishing opportunities, obviously on Winnie and surrounding lakes.
Is the bite still good up there?
Yeah, I mean, I was up there this fall. I took 2 trips up in the fall. It's obviously an overlooked time of the year to get out fishing. Nobody's on the lake. Everyone's out hunting. I like to do like a cast and blast with my dad. We go out walleye fishing in the morning, usually crush the walleyes, do some grouse hunting in the afternoon, evening. It's probably one of my favorite trips of the year.
That sounds awesome.
Speaking of surrounding lakes to the big ones, right now is a prime example of like you don't need to go to Red Lake or Lake of the Woods to get on safe ice. I think the conception right now is everyone sees bad news from people getting stranded on red, and they're like, "Oh my God, the ice season! Like, what is going on? You're not gonna get out." Well, you drive by thousands of lakes that have fishable ice on your way to red. It's like, I don't know, maybe try a smaller one. Grab your portable and start spudding your way out. Like,
You're spot on.
it
I mean,
blows my mind.
we just did some live stuff on the ice over the last week where we showed you like
We're an hour north
spud
of the cities.
Yeah. And spud. Grab a spud bark, whack it a couple times, check the ice, do your due diligence. It's, I mean, you're right, Drew. Like, just because we see it on social media, doom and gloom, whatever, go out there, check the ice for yourself, network, social media, ask people. And that was one of the things I was going to ask you, Mark, is what are you hearing about ice conditions out there? Anything? I mean, what are ice conditions? I don't know what Lake Winnie and Leech is like. I know Red is plenty of ice.
I
Lake
know
of the
people
Woods,
are-
10 inches.
People are getting out on Winnie.
They are, okay.
I know that. Haven't heard too much else around that area. I know as you go a little farther south, Leech Lake, I mean, you hear, Walker Bay is still open,
Walker Bay's
right?
open, yep.
But then other parts of the lake is froze. Obviously, surrounding lakes are froze and have good ice, but you got to use caution. So
Yeah. Walker Bay, the wind tunnel at 100 feet deep too. So it's like,
Yep.
I feel like that's always one of the last bays in Minnesota to ever lock up.
Yep. Those deep water
Or
lakes
Gull
and
Lake.
stuff. Yeah. But yeah, that was a great time just to go out with, a buddy and spud your way out. And you never know what you might find either. Like I just get blown away at how many people go to Red Lake, and I want to go to Red Lake, but also now I know better than like, God, I'm driving by so many great opportunities on my way all the way up here, And honestly, you probably catch more fish on smaller lakes.
Probably.
I mean,
Red Lake's an anomaly though. I mean, that thing
is.
continues just to
it's
be
kind
a
of a
factory.
It is a factory. It's incredible.
I mean, 13 feet deep is basically all you're going to find. And I don't even want to fathom how many fish are in that lake. I mean, it's insane.
What percentage of it is unfishable? 75%?
Yeah.
75 of upper red, and then you still got the entire lower red. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's insane.
Very productive body of water, that's for sure.
I had a conversation with a gentleman that stopped at my house last week. We were talking fishing, shocker, and he was telling me, I'm like, hey, you doing any cool trips this year? And he said he books a guide trip every year with Darius Rosebear. Darius is a guide on the reservation up there, and they go, he can get him in and do some trout fishing and rainbow trout. He said it's just an absolute riot. So like, there's a bunch of other opportunities up there. I know, to Drew's point, outside of red, I don't think we can just go there and fish them. We have to be kind of invited, as I think the term they use. So you have to go with one of the natives in the area. They have a lot of different packages you can do. But I tell you what, I follow Darius on social media. I don't know if anyone does. The dude just cracks them.
It seems
He
like
is
he's
a
always on them.
Heck of an angler. Like it is crazy. And I remember talking to him years and years and years ago at a St. Paul Ice Show before he had a Facebook page, guided anything. And he was coming through just trying to get into fishing, was asking a lot of questions, very intuitive. And I think it was the next year he started guiding. And there was some scrutiny over it, of course, whatever. And then the dude just blew up and he's catching so many good fish. And I hear nothing but phenomenal reports when they go out with this guy, like dialed on fish. What do you want to catch? How do you want to do it? Take you to the promised land. Boom. Like it's pretty neat to hear some of those stories too. Have any of you done that?
I fished the.
Yeah.
I have never.
No, I want to. I know you can get, I don't know if it's a permit or what it's called, but there's ways you can get invited on and go fishing there. To me, that intrigues me. And To do the rainbow trout thing sounds really cool. Shallow water, it sounds like tons of them, one after another.
And they get some big ones too. I don't know where else in the state you can get rainbow trout that are that big.
And in that part of the state, it just seems a little awkward. Are they stocked?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
they
got it. They gotta
I
be.
hope so.
They gotta be because it's
They're
like
all stocked. They're just very small bodies of water, and they're all stocked.
yeah.
Does it seem like red is just like a magnet for crazy stuff to happen? Did you guys see that airplane like landed and kind of fell through? How does that happen? Every year people they go too far and the wind blows in the wrong direction. There's a big crack and they have to get rescued. Like that happens. But I'm like, now an airplane lands on the lake and kind of falls through. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
That place is wild.
And everyone survived. So it wasn't a crash landing. It was an emergency landing. Is that how they put it? And it went through the ice too.
Well,
The
barely
picture sure
through the
looks like
ice.
it went through.
front of it?
Yeah, the story that I read, I mean, I don't know what all is true, but 2 guys from Grand Rapids were flying up there to ice fish, and if you look at the pictures, you can see that they have ice fishing equipment in the plane. So my understanding is that they were looking to land on the lake, fish, and then just fly out at the end of the day.
Really?
Yeah, so
That'd be pretty sweet.
yeah, if you look, they have a
How
hub
do I get on
house.
that program?
They have a hub house jammed right through the middle of the plane with buckets and everything ready to fish. So
Were they just, so maybe they were just trying to land and
Yeah,
hit
I
a
think-
soft spot in the front wheel?
Yep.
My God.
They said that there was no snow on the lake, so the plane couldn't stop. It just slid across the ice.
Shocker.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Weird.
Yep.
How much do planes weigh in comparison to like a side by side? They got to be kind of light, but also it's still a plane, right?
A plane like it would surprise you. It's light.
Yeah.
Gosh,
like-
they must have hit like a crack or something that just
Yeah, but I would
refroze
think
or
there's only a couple small points of impact to the ground. So I mean,
3 spots.
it's not like the weight's dispersed.
No. Yeah, I guess I don't know, but like the post on Facebook I saw last night said that fully loaded, there's no way that it weighed more than 2,000 pounds, which you got to think there's side-by-sides that are close to that are out there right now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Yeah, I haven't seen many ATVs in the area. Excuse me. Like in the metro at all. We got our snow dogs out there, but I haven't seen many ATVs. We're right at about 4 to 6 inches. It seems like I'm finding, not on every lake, but on some of the lakes we've been on. And
Yeah. Well, you don't really need an ATV. It's not hard to pull a sled right now by
Dude,
hand.
it
You
is
can pull
slick.
with one finger. You just need your cleats or whatever because you're going to slip, but like it's easy to pull stuff. So if you don't need an ATV, it's probably not I'd probably leave it at home personally.
I saw one of your buddies. You don't know who he is, but he was on ice skates ripping around out there yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I know Drew was talking about ice skating and ripping his fish trap, and this guy pull onto the bank in the rhubarb. I'm like, what is this guy doing? And then puts on a pair of skates, grabs his one-person trap, and I watched this dude take off across East Rutch on a pair of skates, like just
not?
ripping. And it was glare ice. I mean, the ice right now it's hard to explain because ice is hard, but for yesterday, it was so hard. Like it was crazy. Like you can notice the difference when you cut a hole. And we had people slipping with ice cleats on because the ice was that hard. So you get a little bit of ice buildup, a little bit of water, and it was weird, like hard. Like we had that really hard freeze. We had that wind. There was all that water on the ice. It pushed it all off. It probably gave us an inch of hard pack. And all that like white stuff on the top that you could like step on and you didn't slip as much, gone. Straight
Just like
skating,
a hockey rink.
straight hockey rink. And it was interesting. You should got anyone that knows Danny Vu, ask him how it went yesterday on the snow dog without studs.
Oh, you probably didn't go anywhere.
Actually, you can go to his social media page and you can see exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Mario Andretti's got nothing on Danny Vu.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Just doing burnouts.
Oh, just 360s after 360s after 360s, and it's but that affects the fishing. I mean, from a fishing perspective of those conditions, I mean, it's very difficult right now to catch anything in shallow water. I'm telling you, hyper speed, fish.
Especially with cleats on. It's
Oh,
always
we
that
take 'em off,
It's
yeah.
always that love-hate with cleats. I mean, obviously I don't want to slip and fall, but I have a hard time wearing cleats.
Yeah.
It's just I'd rather not spook the fish.
You can't find one that fits a size 17 boot.
Well, there is that too,
Yeah.
right? But
So-
I don't know.
From a strategy standpoint or tactics for catching fish, from last week when we were out, I would say that, those fish, they relate to the ice more than you think. Like, they talk about red and you fish the cracks and whatnot. Last year we were out on the lake and we were fishing underneath the snowbanks from the plowed road, and that's where they were hanging out. Like it's a part of the the terrain, right?
Yep.
With nothing on top of the ice, those fish get freaked out. And we saw like people trying to run and gun and, you know, forward facing sonar and chase and stay in front of the fish, not working. The moment you walk over to an area, the fish spook. Like you can watch it happen, you know, and like we even like went around and tried pushing fish back, which they pushed back, but they are not stopping to eat. Like they are getting out of dodge, you know, because they're freaked out. So I would say, personally, I would probably find like a juicy little setup and not make a noise and just stay in one spot and just wait for them to come through.
I was going to say that. I remember that day we were out last week. I did most of my damage not leaving one hole. Like I just sat there in one hole, and we had guys, and I was guilty of it too for a period of time, chasing these fish, cutting the hole. Oh, they're over here 40 feet that way. We get so accustomed with our forward facing sonar, and it wasn't even that the auger was scaring them. Like Drew said, we could walk within 20 feet of them and they would move. I mean, they wanted nothing to do with us. And then once we learned, and this happened many times, once you learn that, okay, there's fish here, school here, school there, school behind me, school there, like, and that's what we were finding the other day. It wasn't like there was one little school and we were chasing it. They were all over the place. We finally just punched a bunch of holes and everyone just get their Vexlars and kneel down. And then you started watching people catching fish, and no one was moving. And that made a big difference.
It's really hard to do. I mean, I have a hard time sitting in an ice shelter for more than like 20 minutes at a time. So I got to run and gun, try to stay on the active fish. And but I do think that's a solid tactic with these clear conditions.
Yeah. I think when there's snow and thicker ice and you're chasing the basin fish, I don't think we've all seen you punch them like, oh, they didn't move. They stayed there. I don't know if I said that more than 5 times in the last week and a half. Oh, they didn't move. It's like they're gone. Before you even cut a hole. Like you're walking up to the school and you haven't even cut a hole yet. And the guy running the live scope's like, dude, they're gone. Don't even bother.
So last week when we were on the ice, we were fishing like 17, 18 feet of water. It's
right.
like not super clear lake, but like, you know, there's no snow. And I'm watching on the forward facing sonar. I'm like, there are fish like everywhere, like every direction, right? There's fish and no one's moving, but these fish are moving, but they like weren't coming underneath me. And I'm like thinking, do they see my shadow? Like physically, like, do they sense that? Or do they sense the light coming through the ice a little bit more and are avoiding it? It just blew my mind.
I think they sense the transducer.
Of the live scope?
Absolutely.
Maybe. I mean, 100%, I believe they sense that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, if you guys been swimming on a pontoon or your boat in the summer and you stick your hand under the water, you can hear the ticking. They have to understand that that's something odd.
I think they didn't want to come encounter with Drew. They're like, if I get near that lure, he's going to catch me. So I need to go this way towards.
I did catch one fish and I didn't even get to put hands on it because before I even grabbed it, Matt sliding over and stole it from me. He goes, my kid's got to eat tonight. I'm like, well, geez, dude, like there goes my 10-inch crappie.
I actually,
like what? That's a true story.
I actually think I said those exact words, and I did slide on my knees.
Jack said he'd fillet for me tonight. I'm like, okay,
I actually did run over and slide on my knees, and like, because I remember you were using the active target, and it got caught on there. So I was like, I'll help you unhook it. I was like, unhook, and I ran away, and Drew's just like, dude.
I didn't even get to hold on to my fish I caught or whatever.
I figured he would have caught a bunch more. But
it was tough, man.
It got tough. It did.
Maybe like I'd probably try fishing at night too. Right now, honestly,
That's a good point.
Like we were talking about, like just some classic night basin crappie spots or whatever. Like where it just calm down, the sun's down, like the bugs should be there. Like they're gonna be there,
And they're not gonna move as much. It seems like once that sunlight goes down, the fish stay a little more stagnant, so you can get on that school.
Yeah,
punch your hole and sit.
Right.
I was telling Tom on the way home from last week, I was like, dude, if I was in a tournament fishing today, I would be spinning out because like that's what those guys do. They run it seems from what I've seen, it's like the guys who work the hardest typically do well because they're just running and staying in front of the fish. That would not work. I'm convinced it would not have worked.
Yeah. It was very frustrating yesterday. Like demoralizing.
Did you fish like any like super shallow stuff?
Dude, we tried 5 feet in the weeds. We had Lanky out there, and Lanky was hitting all of his tournament spots where all these fish are supposed to be in the weed clumps, and he even had a camera, and he's like,
were they there?
No, nothing. The only fish we could find were out in the deepest part, and they were straight up hyperspeed. It was hard to get within 60 feet of them. There were schools of them, and they would not sit. You brought up a good point about the sundown. So a handful of us stuck it out on East Rush. A handful of the crew took off in the afternoon to West Rush and said, we just need to reset. They had fished it last week, caught a couple fish. It wasn't anything crazy, but they're like, we were just struggling, right? And we're over there whipping around on the snow dogs, doing some content, having some fun, goofing off. And they said when the sun hit the trees, they hunkered down on what they think was a productive spot. They stopped moving, and they did pretty well. And then Phil Biden, who another one of our pros was out there, he lives on the east side of town, so he's like, he ripped over to like the White Bear Lake, Bald Eagle area, one of those lakes. He won't tell me. Didn't look like either, but he's over there. And he caught a bunch of crappies when the sun went down as well. So to your point, Drew, this might be the time of year, like if you're seeing fish in an area, you probably want to make note because there's fish there. And then you might want to make note on where you're seeing them more consistently. Might be worth dropping a pin there, and when the sun goes down, coming back and hunkering down on the nearest piece of structure to that. Probably get bit.
Isn't it crazy how we probably wouldn't even be talking about this if it wasn't for forward-facing sonar, and because you can see all the fish you're not catching?
Dude.
We talked about this with Crane and Holmgren on the last or two podcasts ago. I was like, you don't even, it almost frustrates you more because you don't even know. Now you know all the fish you're not catching,
You
right?
just assume that they're not there, and you got to make bigger moves instead of these small, minor moves to stay on the school.
Yeah.
Doesn't that show you how many fish are actually in the lake, though?
Right.
That's
It
the
is
thing that
crazy.
blows my mind. Like when we were on Pokegama,
Oh my God.
every single spot we went to, like I'm not giving up any secrets. Every spot we went to in that lake, it was like, well, there's some, or there's some, oh, there's the group, oh, there's another school.
Yeah.
You don't realize how many fish are really in some of these lakes.
Yeah. And that lake's that's a river system, so it's got rough fish and game fish and like it's got everything, but you're just like, dang, there's a lot happening. Why are they not swimming underneath the hole? I can't figure this out.
Yeah, and it's like the catfish thing. The last several years since forward-facing sonar came about, like I get clients that always bring it. They bring their live scope, their active target, their hummingbird, whatever model it is. They all kind of do the same thing, and we'll chase them, and I'll play nice, and it's fun to watch these cats on forward because they move differently than other game fish. Like just the way they swim, how they move up and down in the water column. They're not just, their trajectory is not just straight and flat. Like they're like a swarm. And you watch them and you know which one they are, and it's like, oh, they're here, and then they chase them, and the most skittish fish are catfish. And it does not matter about the ice. You can have 2 feet of ice and a foot of snow, and they still move when you punch a hole on them. Like they're the most skittish fish ever. They don't stay. And what I always do, and I was guilty of this first, when we had forward-facing sonar, I would chase them. I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm going to knock these out. I'm going to crush these. And what you have to do is you have to utilize that tool, and this is what I've used all the time now, is I utilize that tool to find and locate fish. And then I put it away and go to my roots. I cut the holes and I grab the Vexilar. And I found myself catching way more fish with that mindset going into it last year. 2 years ago, it was all about the forward-facing sonar. I'm going to run. I'm going to chase them. And I'm like, I'm catching less than I used to before I use this stuff. This is ridiculous. I'm seeing more fish, but I'm catching less. And what catfish taught me was utilize those tools to find the fish, to know you're in the right spot. Okay, they're here. I'm seeing schools. Now do what you know. Cut your holes, hunker down, wait for them to cycle through. And case in point, that's what it works that way with panfish too. If you watch the really good guys like in the UPL, Mark, they're not chasing with the forward-facing sonar. They find their school and they sit down and they fish them.
Right.
It's a reassurance thing. It's not a fish catching tool.
It should be used as just it's a tool to help you, right? I mean, it's not the end all be all. If you can't stay on them with forward-facing sonar, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to adapt.
I think we've probably talked about it at least once on the podcast, but it's the same in your boat. Like guys who, like if I were to buy a new boat right now and could rig it up with electronics, like I love the forward-facing sonar. It's amazing, but like I am not going to give up side imaging by any means, because like that tool, you better be good at side imaging. You better be good at reading your flasher on the ice, because that's how you catch fish too, right? Like
Absolutely.
I can find the weed line easy with, forward-facing sonar and make an accurate cast, but if I, drive a mile on the tiller, I will side image and find like the 2 rocks on the weed line and the, the secondary spine.
Yeah.
So you need all your tools on hard or soft water.
You're spot on. And forward-facing sonar in the boat, and Drew just nailed it. To me, it's not about fish. It's to know exactly how far I have to cast to the structure.
Yep.
Like I love knowing that I'm 35 feet away from the weed line or 25 feet away from the rock pile.
Accuracy is unbelievable.
And the thing that blew my mind the most about forward-facing sonar, once you get to use it, how bad our perception really is.
Right.
Especially cutting holes in the ice when you're like, 40 feet. Everyone I know goes like 100 feet away, and they think it's like, no, you got to think about it. Yeah. If you go 30 feet, that's 10 yards. Think about a football field. That is not far, but to the normal person, they think 30 feet is a ways away. And they always walk past the fish. And I was like, no, back here. No, this is 30 feet. I'm like, dude, you're at like 60.
Right.
Okay, cut a hole. And then I can see their auger going. I'm like, dude, you're 30 feet past that school of fish. That my perception, I learned, like just looking across this room, like that's more than 30 feet to that door.
Well, you guys bow hunt. You know how.
Yeah. See, I
you
don't.
can
I don't.
take your yardage. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's about 18 yards, maybe 20. Like, you just times it by 3. Okay, it's 60 feet now.
Yeah.
That stuff clicks fast.
It is entertaining though to use that new technology. I think it's fun, and it's giving you a to say it doesn't give you any advantage is a blatant lie. If anyone's like, oh, you don't need it, it's never going to help you. It's like, you know, I'm a diehard Vexlar guy. Don't get me wrong. It is my lifeline. It's my fish mood indicator. But if anybody is like, oh no, it will not help you. It's like, I'm sorry, man. I got news for you. It makes a difference. And what I've learned with it, the number one thing I've seen different is the amount of holes I cut. That's the number one thing I've seen. I was like, in the past, it's like grid out this room, 20 holes, move hole hop. Now you go in the middle, you punch one hole and you spin and make a decision if you want to stay. And to me, that is the biggest thing. Time is money, right? Cliche. And as a fishing guide, time is important. I'm not going to spend an hour and a half to find this school. I want to spend 10 minutes and put my clients to work. And that's definitely helped.
Well, and just battery life too, right? So like before forward-facing sonar, I mean, you might burn through 5 or 6 drill batteries in a day.
Yep.
Now you could burn through 1 and even had a more successful day than going through 6 prior.
Yep. We just did a video on the ice with our media team at Ice Team that you're going to get to see called the 1, 2, 3 punch of pan fishing or fishing. And that's going to tell just that. It's going to tell you forward-facing sonar, auger, Vexlar, in that order. That's your success statement. If the 4 of us go fishing and the 4 of us understand a little bit about basin fishing, let's use basin for example, and we have those tools, we're dangerous.
You need like a rod too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the guy with the Vexlar. So the guy with the Vexlar, you got the person on the forward-facing sonar directing traffic, the guy with the auger cutting a hole, the guy with the Vexlar, right? And if you do that effectively, right now, all care is out the window. I don't know anything that works. But if you do those other things effectively, it's quite impressive how you can catch a fish.
With a group of guys.
Yeah, it really
When
is.
you work together as a team, I think that's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have somebody drilling holes, somebody running the forward-facing sonar, and just kind of directing traffic. Where do you drill from here? Who should drop down in this hole?
Yeah.
They don't even need to fish.
Do you feel like that's hurting fishing? Because that's a topic I hear all the time is people are like, how much longer can these lakes sustain? Because I feel like every time I post a picture of forward-facing sonar or a video on any of my personal stuff, I got those 2, 3, 4, 5 haters on there like, oh, you can ruin fishing or it must be hard. Like, why are you cheating? And it's like, well, I got thick skin. I read through some of the BS. But you also sit and talk to a lot of people that understand fishing well. And they're like, we don't know. They don't know yet. I think the verdict's out, to be honest.
I think it depends how you're fishing, where you're fishing, and what you're fishing for, right? So, I mean, if you're talking basin fishing, panfish that school up over deeper water, they're going to be a little more susceptible to, over harvest, possible mortality if they're being brought up from deeper water. So those are factors that, I think going forward, state agencies are going to have to at least consider with forward-facing sonar. But, I mean, you're talking shallow water, people are doing catch and release, catching fish out of just shallower water in general. Crappies are really suspended right underneath the ice. I don't see a huge issue, but
I think it comes down to the person's responsibility.
It's
at the end of the day, you can give anyone any tool for hunting or fishing or driving or snowmobile. Like, it's still up to the person to practice ethics.
It's
and
ethics.
Selective resource,
Is really what it
and
is.
selective harvest and things like that. So, and every time I hear those topics, I'm always like, it's all comes down to the person. That person can choose to abuse the resources. Now, this isn't a new topic. Forward-facing sonar didn't open that topic up to the world of fishing, right? GPS came along. People said the same thing. Think about spot lock.
Yeah.
Think about a number of things, right? Like, it's how do you use that technology to your advantage to not hurt the resource? I'm hopeful when these conversations come up on a higher level that there's some educational focused push behind it versus this isn't right, this isn't working. Just my 2 cents.
I think it's crazy too. People think like, oh, you're gonna hurt the fish. You're gonna fish out Red Lake or something. I had someone ask me that, like, people are gonna catch all the fish out of Red Lake. I'm like, well, people are keeping a lot of fish out of Red Lake, obviously, but there's so much water in Minnesota and the surrounding states that you can drive by and you're like, there's no one out there and there's fish in there. Like, there's a lot of lakes that don't get any pressure. So like, if you think like, yeah, if you go to a Twin Cities lake that it's full of stunted bluegills and crappies, well, it's because there's been so much pressure over the years. But like, just drive a little further. Drive an hour any direction, and you might have better fishing opportunities, better quality, because there's less human pressure.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is, like, I think it takes a lot of pressure to actually outfish a lake, like over harvest. I think you'll see, dips in size structure, well before you see, actual substantial declines in fish populations.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean winter kill has a bigger problem for fish than fishermen, to be honest, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean,
all that being said, everyone does need to be responsible. And, only if you're fishing deep crappies, only catch your 10 or keep your 10 and then maybe go find different fish. But there's so many opportunities. Back to that thing where it's like you drive by so many Great Lakes to get to Lake of the Woods or Red that don't get pressured. It's like, holy smokes. You could spend a lifetime fishing, lakes and that.
Not even touching.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's the fun part of it for me, right? So, like, we have a family cabin in the Hackensack, Longville area. I mean, there's an insane amount of lakes in that area. And
my God.
I try to make it a point every time I go up there to fish 1 or 2 new lakes I've never been on.
Which ones are your favorite?
Again,
try again.
Again, don't really want to get into those details, but yeah, it's just amazing, and
it's more rewarding when you go to a new lake. And
it's fun. It's just
100%.
way more fun. The unknown, the uncertainty of what you're going to catch. I mean, you'll be surprised. I mean, you can look at lake surveys until you're blue in the face, but until you actually get out there and try it, you'll never know.
100%.
There's some pride too when you find those fish on a lake that you're like, there might be something here. Like some of the coolest bites I've had in, I don't know, my 20-ish years of fishing hard is on lakes that I never had fished before. Let's just try it. And then you stumble across something, you're like, oh my, who can I tell about this? Like,
it feels like your little secret, right? You go to like a hidden body of water or one that's often overlooked. You find something good or a new tactic to do it, and it is very rewarding.
And then your pride gets blown when you come off to the access and the guy goes, did you find the big gills out there? He knows too.
I've been catching them for 30 years.
Drew, you brought up a really good comment though about keep your 10 fish and go on a deep base. And I think that's something that's underutilized. And there was a video that the Linders just put out.
Oh, yeah.
The barotrauma video.
Yep.
Have you guys watched that?
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's wonderful. I mean, I think people should. It's just kind of an eye. It makes you think about things. And I can tell you one thing, having known Jeremy Smith and that crew for a long time, they've been working on that video. That wasn't like, hey, let's go out this weekend and try something. It was months and months and months of conversations and planning and studies. It does it very, very well intrigue me. But I think your comment is phenomenal. If you're going to go out to the basin, and I think they said under 25 feet, the mortality rate skyrockets. So I'm not here to preach and say not go fishing in 35 feet of water for crappies, but like Drew said,
no, they're probably not going to make it. Yeah.
Keep your 10, right. And if that's where your permanent house is sitting, then I guess whatever, you make that choice. But if you're out there in a fish trap and you're hole hopping, you're moving around, like, keep your few fish and maybe move shallower or try something else if that option exists. Again, it's up to each individual, but that's sound advice.
Yeah. And I think, don't be afraid to tell someone that either. Like I've had to tell buddies, I'm like, yeah, like we're going to catch crappies and bluegills, but like let's only fish for a couple hours and then let's go throw some tip ups out or something. Cause like you can, 2 weeks ago, we were catching fish out of 25 to 28 feet of water. And like, you could tell, like they'd come up and like, these things aren't going back. Like we only fished for a couple hours. And then, even when we were leaving, we released some that looked like they were good. And then we looked under the ice and there's a dead crappie. Yeah. I'm like, I'm glad we stopped because, it's the right thing to do. But like, tell your buddy like, hey, we can't just keep windmilling these crappies and bluegills because, they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
So,
and it's funny too, when you catch those fish out of deep water, we've all seen it, how different a big crappie fights in 25 feet compared to 7 feet. Oh, God. Like in 25 feet, like I've seen you catch close to 2-pound crappies where I'm not sure how big this is yet, and then you don't know. And then like the next guy catching is like, no, I'm good. I don't need any help. And then you're like, Jesus, it's 14-incher, like, because it's like head shake. Oh, he's coming in. I don't think he's that big. Because whether it's barotrauma, a number of different things where they just lose their fight. You catch a crappie in 7 feet of water in the weeds.
Oh, they're like fast.
Their drag is they're going to slip your drag. I mean, I love shallow water crappies. Personally, I think they're an absolute riot.
That's one thing too with forward facing sonar I was going to touch on earlier, but people are overlooking those weed beds in shallower areas way more now.
Mm-hmm.
And often, I'm sure you could attest to this running the UPL, but some of your biggest panfish are going to be shallow almost the entire year.
Especially
Absolutely.
in the metro area.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when you find spots like that around here, 90% of the time there's no holes on them. Nobody else is fishing them. So to all the people
Yeah,
listening.
I would never look there if anyone's listening.
Yeah.
We've
It's
seen
no
where
good.
there's 100 wheelhouses in a little basin. You take a 30-yard walk to the weeds, and there's like 12-inch crappies that aren't getting touched. Like, this is incredible.
That was fun. That day on Minnetonka, Drew's not lying. We were 30 yards from like 30 permanent
From here to
shacks
the front desk away.
in middle of the day, and we're catching well beyond average metro crappies.
Oh, yeah.
Right in the weeds, and we're looking across, and we're like, "Ooh, probably shouldn't exploit this because like all these guys right here will come over here and."
Well,
but
they
it takes
still wouldn't
there's
know how
there's
to
some
catch
yeah
them.
there's a lot of skill
Yeah.
involved. Not that I'm bragging about you and me, but it's not like you just go there and catch them. Like we cut quite a few holes to find the exact corridor in the
Drop
weeds, so
cameras
that
down, and you're like, that's the highway they're running. It's crazy.
and that's the tournament mindset.
In the milfoil, they can be hard to see on forward-facing sonar, too.
Oh,
They tuck up in that milfoil.
We watched a guy yesterday on East Rush. It astounded us. If anyone knows Max Zaruba, Hardwater Freaks, Max was out there yesterday helping Snow Dog, good dude, and we're sitting there talking while we're doing some demos and things like that. This local guy comes out, drags his shack all the way across the bay. And he knew what he was doing, where he was going, all the way across. Proceeds to cut a series of holes, and he's laying on his stomach, sliding from hole to hole. You can't see me if you're not on the camera. Puts his hands over, and he's looking. And he's looking for specific corridors in those weeds to set up his trap. And he would move like every hour and a half on a one-person trap. And he was specifically looking for a specific spot targeting bluegills, and he did very well. And I mean, and here's the guy, obviously, knows they're there. He's not but it wasn't an accident, right? But just to show you, like, the average angler wouldn't even be caught dead doing that, let alone going that shallow.
Yeah.
And when they do, they're going to cut 3 holes. Jig, 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 jig. They're not here. Well, if we saw it on Tonka, there's a specific migration route through these weeds that these fish want to go in order to feed. A lot of the other fish are just complacent. This is their home.
Yeah.
They're in the bedroom. They're in the living room. Here's the kitchen, right? Like they're just complacent sitting in their house. And it was cool to watch this guy, and you'd see him move. But every 90 minutes, he'd slide, same thing, look, flip the trap because he saw what he would see, and he wouldn't move for an hour and a half. And when he was done leaving, he did well.
Well, there's probably some sort of vertical cover that they're traveling through. I know that's the deal on Tonka. It was the 8-foot tall milfoil, and it was only probably because it was on the edge of a drop off, so it was probably only 10 yards wide, maybe.
Yeah.
And that was the route that every single crappie was running. 100%. They're running right down the middle. It was like a kelp forest of, like if you're in saltwater type thing, like from the cartoons and stuff. That's what they were doing.
Yeah.
I bet you probably didn't see a whole lot of that on Rush yesterday.
We didn't see any weed growth out.
Like, why would they be there? I'd
Yeah.
go hide out deep somewhere, like there's no cover. Like I wouldn't hide there. I wouldn't go sit in the middle of a picked cornfield right now and think I'm going to be safe. I'd go to the ditch or to the woods,
Yeah.
just how anything is, I guess.
That fishing intrigues me the most. Like the basin thing is cool. Like I've done it a million times. We all have. It's fun. It is rewarding when you get on them because you feel like you work so hard too that you're like, this is cool. But that shallow weed bite, I think, is Brian, you nailed it. It's so over. If you follow the fishing leagues, it's all one combat fishing in the shallow weeds. It's always right.
Yep.
It's pretty rare that people have to go to the basin to rely on their check.
Right. It's usually 1 inch shallow in the weeds.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
dead of
summertime
winter.
bass tournament too. I know, personally, and I know a lot of other people, like if I need like a big bite, like I am going to go shallow and I'm going to be like flipping a dock, frogging, punching, because a lot of times you'll catch like a big one doing that stuff.
And that goes for everything, too, like walleyes, too. I mean, ice fishing in Wisconsin in college, our biggest walleyes that we would catch would be, less than 5 feet of water. And most guys are out fishing 18 to 25, maybe.
More classic walleye structure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Is it a timing thing though?
It is. It's
at night.
At
Are you
night.
catching them
At night, at dusk, or in the mornings. But those fish come up out of that deep water and they cruise across the top of the weeds and feed on the bait fish.
Yeah, you catch them on tip ups.
Tip ups usually.
And back off the spot.
You can jig, but you almost don't even want a Vexilar because you're not going to mark a fish that comes in to eat. And it's all a noise deal. You have to be silent, obviously.
Turn headlamps off and everything, yeah.
Yep.
I think fish can get kind of territorial to a certain degree as well. Like
Sure.
I know for largemouth, I've seen it so many times, just fish in person. Like the biggest one that I'll catch in that day was on the best laydown on the whole lake, like the biggest, most thick, dense laydown, right? And like I've seen it so many times, and I've even talked to, I talked to John Cox one time during an FLW tournament. It was a bed fishing tournament in Florida, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I went to like the best bed on the whole south side of Lake Toho, and like I caught like a 10-pounder on day one, and then I went back next day. There was another one on it, and I caught that one too."
Different fish.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, they bring them all the way back.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, I
release them.
suppose. Yep.
But like it was like, geez, like fish know that. It was like the point of like a bunch of pencil reeds or something, like adjacent to deep water, and there's like a weed bed. Like it just all sets up perfect. It's like if you do find that spot shallow, like ice fishing, it's probably a good spot, for numerous occasions. So
yeah, you're right. Because like I think about some of the best spots on Tonka shallow, it's where you rely on a big bass bite in the summer. And usually it's a hard bottom spot in the milfoil.
your favorite dock,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
the biggest
Oh,
dock
yeah.
on the point. That's where the biggest bass is going to be.
You have a deep stretch of docks in the summertime. When those docks get moved and they hold good weed growth, you can bet there's fish there in the wintertime. No one does that. Like people just don't think about that. Anglers want to go deep in the winter. I don't know why. And Ryan, you're right. Like anglers drive right past everything. They got to get all the way out to the basin and hunker down. And I think there's a timing for like, if you're going to sit and put all evening, like what's right behind us, the clamping thing, you probably want to set up over the basin because you're probably looking to pick up some fish throughout the evening hours. It just depends. If you're planning to fish hard all day out of your fish house, well, maybe you want to be in a weed bed and catch bluegills and whatever else. But some of that is dependent on the time of day too. I think the guys that go out there to the basin are probably your 2-hole punchers, flip your trap, sit down, enjoy the sundown bite.
And they're not moving.
They're not moving. They're not moving. So that makes sense. Where guys like us, I mean, we're just moving all over the place. Swiss cheese. It's fun.
Not to change subjects too much, but I want to touch on, so Ryan, we mentioned you're on the sales team.
Yep.
Let the folks know, like, I feel like they kind of know what we do. Like we market and we promote stuff and do cool videos and photos and all this stuff. What exactly does Ryan do on a daily basis in the sales part of an outdoor company?
Yeah. So, kind of our main goal, to sum it all up, would be our job is to make sure that retailers have the product available in stock for customers to purchase. And everything that goes into that is kind of a customer service aspect, where if a retailer has an issue with an item or wants to place an order, something like that, they would come to either our sales reps or us here at Clam. There's 3 of us on the team that kind of make things go behind the scenes. But so a day in the life of Ryan could be anything from entering orders to answering emails with our reps.
I know you guys did some
all kinds of different
training
stuff.
recently.
Yeah, Shields training. We go on different line reviews and stuff like that with our big box stores or retailers.
I thought it was
bunch of
kind of
different
cool
stuff.
when I first learned how everything works. Like if you're an outsider looking in, it's not just like, oh yeah, Clam makes hub houses and they sell them. Like no, it has to make sense from Clam's perspective, from any of our competitors' perspective, to the retailer, then to the consumer. It's like everyone's kind of in it together, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
To a
Yeah.
certain degree.
And I know you guys have touched on this in the past on this podcast, but one of the coolest things about working at Clam is everybody wears multiple hats here.
Yeah.
Like, you could sum up Mark's role as a quality control, but at the end of the day, Mark's doing what in a different company might be 8 other roles at the same time.
Line winding.
Exactly. Sure. So I think that's pretty cool. Like, you guys work in marketing, but you're not just doing marketing all the time. You're working shows, you're filming content, all kinds of different crazy stuff. So
Yeah. I guess I was trying to get at, like, there's a lot. People see what we do, I hope. People don't really see what like Ryan and Mark do, but it definitely drives a lot of the industry.
Yes.
And people like you from all the other companies too out there. Like it's very, very vital. Like you could sell, I mean, I guarantee you there's times where you guys don't sell stuff because it just doesn't make sense economically. Like maybe we need more stuff next year. Maybe it's ahead of its time. Like there's a lot that goes in. We don't just like, make everything and try to force it to consumers, so to speak. It's very calculated.
Yeah. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, so working quality control. So at our headquarters here, we're not really doing any of the manufacturing per se. So when a shipping container comes in, I'm inspecting product, making sure it's up to par for what we expected, making sure, reading hang tags, things are correct, all the information, specifications, everything's accurate. I also help write the owner's manuals for a lot of our products. Just do a lot of like the editing, make sure all the information is accurate across the board.
Yeah. So you're good at spell check?
I like to believe so. I actually have a minor in journalism, if you didn't know
nice.
that. So
Wow.
I do
Nice.
enjoy writing. I like editing. I like that
Solid.
stuff, so
Solid. You're also a model for our company. We learned about that at the very beginning of the podcast. You've appeared on some photos and some catalogs and some videos with Quickset
I
recently.
can tell you, if you follow Quickset on any social media, TikTok, Instagram, you will see a lot of Mark here.
Yes.
Upcoming.
Yes.
there you go.
Crazy Mark. No, Ryan, you're right too. There's a lot of hats that go on, and that goes for a lot of people outside of this table too. Our accounting team, and when we get together for events and things, it is kind of all hands on deck at times. Like you'll see a plethora of our employees at the St. Paul Ice Show, and you may not know who they are. You might think there's just another pro staffer, but you might be standing right across from the owner of our company. Dave Osborne, our owner, will be there hanging out, talking, selling a fish house. You don't know, and it always baffles me when customers start to talk to someone like him and what do you do at Clam? Oh, I'm around, and he's very, very polite. He usually doesn't say I'm the owner, right? He's just like, I help out. I do a little bit of everything, and it's like, then you walk away, talk to that customer, like, you know what that was? No idea. That was the owner of the company. What? Really? He was a nice guy, didn't he? It's like, and it goes from everything. I think that's always neat. Same with setting a booth, doing sales meetings. We'll get our R&D team in there to help talk about the product and help educate our sales reps on things they can do and say better and understand. It's awesome.
Well, everyone's to a certain degree, I think, an outdoorsman here. Or, everyone's got their, their strengths and whatnot. But that's why even like today with Mike being sick, we're like, God, we got to talk to someone. Well, heck, why are we bringing people in? We got people inside the walls, that we can talk to.
We got people good at making products, setting up tables. We got all kinds of things going on.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
So.
Actually, Matt set this table up. I just avoided it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Yeah. But no,
so
good deal.
I want to talk. I did want a section because Mark and I were talking about this yesterday. I want everyone to give me a couple underrated items that you know of in the ice fishing industry that you think have changed the industry or shaped it that no one talks about anymore or never did talk about. Because I have two.
The most underappreciated,
underrated stuff
of any generation.
Sure. Actually, I have three. And these don't have to be, it can be anything. So my three, what sparked this thought yesterday was you probably can't see it, but there's a floor mat back here. And it's a Clam floor mat, shameless plug, but any floor mat I think is one of the most underrated items for an outdoorsman for one reason. And that is because when I show up to the lake or to the field to pheasant hunt, I'm taking my tennis shoes off and putting my boots on or I'm putting my bibs on, and I do not want to stand on a wet, snowy
Wonderful.
floor. Okay?
It's genius.
That's simple.
It's genius.
I know, right? It's amazing. So you can make fun of me in the comments if you want, but I think that's an underrated
I dig it. I just stepped in freaking dirt yesterday, and I wish I had a floor mat.
Exactly. And you can buy one for Christmas, give it to your dad. It's a great stocking stuffer. Number two, if Corey Studer from Vexlar is listening to this, I love the blue Gens box for your Vexlar. Okay, I love that thing because it's square. It fits nice in the corner. My little sled, I can beat the thing up. I can wrap my transducer around it. It's amazing. It holds the battery. Love that thing. Would you guys agree?
That's all I use.
I mean, a lot of people love the Pro Pack. The Pro Pack's probably for the guy who is. I've seen a lot of wheelhouse guys actually use it. They transport it in the bucket, so that has its purpose. But with like running and gunning, love the Gens box. Number three, I would say is like a sunflower heater.
Yeah.
And I say that because I know when I got into ice fishing right away, that was one of the first items I'm like, I need that thing to work because I wanted to stay warm.
How many bibs and fish house doors did you burn though?
Oh, dude, yeah, the back of my bibs are always torched. So heaters in general, I can't.
It's a good list.
I can't not say the flip over shelter. I feel like that one's so obvious, but
Yeah.
sometimes people take it for granted. Like all these things started from the white canvas one made, the wood sled back in the front entrance. And, just don't forget about those cool things because it kind of shapes where we are today. So
Yeah.
those are my handful, just underappreciated items. Anyone else?
Ryan?
I've got one that sticks out. I guess it might not be underappreciated per se, but I would say it's still probably underused in like the hub house world, and that would be a rattle reel. Because oftentimes the biggest fish that you're catching ice fishing are coming on a dead stick or a rattle reel that you haven't touched in an hour, and it's just sitting down there, and the fish that's lethargic or maybe doesn't want to eat your jigging spoon will come up and eat a live bait setup of some kind.
That's a fact.
I agree with you. You're right on that.
And then the other thing, thinking
Wait,
about...
you said one.
Well, I got one other one,
Okay.
I guess. And it's an item that's newer to us, but I've been around it working retail for quite a few years now, and it's actually the Ice Well Live Well. Not the mesh bags that we sell, but it's the blue plastic Ice Well Live
I'll
Well.
go grab it quick.
The Frank Wilkins one.
Correct. And that thing, if you haven't used one before, once you do, you will love it and you'll never go back.
Drew's got one here for anyone watching. He's going to show it. We've had that thing piled with some fish.
Yeah, and the reason being is...
I mean, Mark's crappies won't fit in there, but
No, not my 18 inchers.
you've caught an 18-incher, right? I know. I'm not lying.
Yeah, so not only does this fit down the hole and keeps the fish thawed, but at the end of the day, when you pick this thing up and it's full of fish, it fits perfectly in a 5-gallon pail. So
Yeah,
when
that
you
is
get
slick.
home, you don't have to... I mean, one of the worst things is cleaning frozen fish after you're done ice fishing.
No, you're right.
That's why Matt has his kids do it.
Jack is getting very good at cleaning fish. It's pretty rare that I have to clean fish anymore. So, boom. All right, Mark, what you got? Some? I got a few.
Yeah, I think I got a couple. I don't know if it's exactly what you're looking for, Drew, but I think kind of an unsung hero, just for outdoorsmen in general, would be like a good base layer, whether it be like a synthetic base layer, merino wool, whether you're ice fishing, hunting. I mean, right now I'm still bow hunting. You know, you're sitting out there on a cold evening, and if you're cold, it's not fun. You get anxious.
All hunting is the worst.
I mean,
any hunting.
You're shaking. You want to go in. You want to move. You know, it's just not easy to sit still and be comfortable. And it's the same thing when you're ice fishing, right? I mean, if
you have to be warm.
If you're cold, you want to move, and you're not having fun. So, I think that would be kind of an unsung hero. Another one that I have, it's within our clam lineup. It's actually a lure that I use a lot. Part of Clam Pro Tackle is our drop spoon and our dropper spoon.
Oh yeah,
it's
we talked about those with Crane.
okay, maybe you did,
ago.
but yeah, it's a 1/32 ounce spoon. It's just offered in that one size, perfect for sunnies and crappies. It's tungsten.
Treble hook.
Yeah, it's got the epoxy bead on the treble hook. I fish that with no bait, similar to how you'd fish a pinhead.
That's my when all else fails.
We
bait.
use that on our live feed.
Yeah, because everything was failing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the only thing they bit on was a tiny pin on that rig right there.
Yeah.
They wouldn't bite anything else. They do not touch, and they go over and they eventually pick it up.
It's actually one of my go-tos. I love it. It falls extremely fast if you're fishing, deep water, basin panfish. It's an awesome.
I need to fish that more. I'll admit. Yeah. I don't fish that one at all. I mean, it has its place. I have it on a dead stick.
I mean, I think a fish probably sees it and they'd almost think it's like a pinhead pro to a certain degree, but it's just smaller. Like it's even more finesse. So
it's got there's no flapper blade or anything on it, but it comes with some nice gold, white, pink, red, some solid color options. So
I have to break that one out.
Unsung hero.
It's a good one.
And then I guess one more, and you did touch on it, Drew, a little bit. It's side imaging. And for ice fishing applications, obviously using it in the boat. So like on this particular lake where we have a family cabin, and I'll be going up there this weekend as well. So like I've spent the last couple summers just perusing that lake, side imaging everything I can, dropping waypoints on every little rock pile, whether it be, offshore, onshore, whatever. And those are, awesome places to target walleyes. I do a lot of tip-up fishing up there for walleyes, fishing in the night. And, without those waypoints, no matter what I have for electronics through the ice, that's invaluable information, is knowing exactly where those rocks are, where that structure
yeah.
is. So
Absolutely.
I'd say it's kind of an unsung hero for me that I use quite a bit. I'm not looking for fish. I'm just looking for the structure and the waypoint, and I'm going to use that information, months later.
Yep, 100%.
I'd say there's 3 for me. The first one is a hand muff. And I say that because I think I don't like fishing with gloves on.
Yep.
Hence why I get frostbite all the time. But our hand muff, I think, is starting to catch on. And I would always put those little, throwaway Mr. Heater hand warmers in there. Now I use our actual hand
I was
warmer.
almost going to say that those were one of my underappreciated
I
items because I use those
live
all the time.
with it around my waist, and I have for
You've been
years.
You've been using that forever.
I was
that
the
hand
only
muff
one using it, I think, for a long time.
You were
And
the
then
OG.
We got rid of it, and
of that.
same with the vest. Like I remember I used to wear a red vest way back in the Fishing Minnesota days. People made fun of me. Why are you wearing a vest for ice fishing? You look like Scotty McFly from Back to the Future. Now everyone wears a vest. But I think it's so invaluable that you can just put your hands in there and take away a little bit of the chill. You also put some macroplastics in there, your maggots, whatever. I think a hand muff is great. It also kind of, maybe I'm weird, but it puts my bibs like right in the position I want them. It's like a belt around your waist.
It's a little weird.
I mean, I think it's comfortable, and you don't realize the weight of your bibs on your shoulders
Yes.
over
Yeah,
a period
yeah,
of time. So
100%.
when you have that hand muff around your waist, it takes some of that weight off of your shoulders. So that's big.
Do you, not to interrupt, do you actually thread your hand muff through the loopholes?
No,
on the
I
waist?
just
You don't do
snap
that?
around
Just
and
put it
go.
on?
Yeah.
Because we have
do that.
loopholes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen some people who wear the belts.
Yeah.
And,
No, you just gave me another idea. I'll do that now too. And now I'm
Okay.
putting my belt on.
There you go.
tip of the
I got
day.
2 more. The other one, I love a portable grill. I have a
Ooh,
portable grill with
yeah.
me. I think it's
Unsung
one of the
hero.
most underutilized items for ice fishing. I buy these things for $40 at Lowe's or Menards or Home Depot. I'm not buying a fancy Coleman or $200 thing. Trust me, I've tried that. They don't hold up any better. Not to our sport of ice fishing. So I buy the $40 deal. I go through so many. I go through one a year. But as anyone knows that's fished with me, I grill a lot on the ice for every guide trip, for all of our shoots. You can't replace. And some of these grills the one I have is tiny. Everything fits in a tote if I wanted to. 1 pound propane tank, take the chill off. On even a decent day of fishing, a good brat tastes good. And when the fishing's tough, it will absolutely save the day. So I think a little portable grill that just packs up on the bed of your truck is very underutilized for ice fishing. I really
agree.
believe it. And last but not least is something that's been around for way longer than 3-color flashers is a depth therm. So you can
Oh,
actually
the
figure out
OG.
the temperature of what's down there. And on our last podcast, we had Pat Smith on. And Pat taught me about the depth turn years ago. And he's so detailed about what he does is that he feels like there's times where the fish relate to a certain degree of temperature. And he's proven it time and time again. If you go to the mud flat on Mille Lacs or any kind of transition line, the temperature over that mud is different. And everyone thinks it's just about the bottom content. It absolutely is about the bottom content. But why is that bottom content at times doing what it's doing? Sometimes it omits certain temperatures difference. If you put that depth therm into the mud or around that area, that bottom temperature is going to be different than the surrounding temperature. And we don't think about it. So the depth therm, I don't use it as much anymore because I've kind of taught myself some of that stuff. But I think that thing was way ahead of its time. No one thought about it. And then, it was, and what we would do is you'd actually put a notches on that depth therm to know how deep it was too. So this was a long, long time ago. You drop it down to the bottom, you know your depth. You'd say, okay, blue notch, green notch. You know how deep you were as well. And then you pull up and you could see the temperature of what's going on down there. I mean, how important do we look at temperature in the boat?
Oh, very,
All
very
the
important.
time. In the winter, we never think about it. And everyone just thinks the temperature is uniform under the ice. They are blatantly wrong. Blatantly wrong that the temperature is the same under the ice.
Have you guys fished springs through the ice?
I have, yeah.
It's got to
I've fallen through
be
some.
slightly colder, I would think. I've never done
And people think it's warmer because the water opens up. Well, that's moving water. It's going to deteriorate the ice and create an open hole.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I would
I
think
I know that's a pattern the guys do for bass on the Kentucky River or Tennessee River and stuff. So
I don't know if it's colder in the winter time. In the
Yeah.
summer, it certainly is, but you get a thermocline in the winter time that could shift. So I'm not sure if that opens up because it's warm water in the winter time.
Correct.
In cold water, yeah.
I think the idea behind it is that far down in the ground or whatever, the temperature rarely changes. So in the summer, it's colder water.
Yep.
In the winter, it's warmer.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I have I have a couple more, but I have one more actual good underrated item is a blowtorch. I've been saved many times by having a blowtorch with me, like mostly when I'm in like a wheelhouse, with the cranking up the chains and everything. Like I or even last year, I remember one time we were on Leech, it was during that blizzard day, and we could not
Oh,
get
that's
that
right.
coupler to go on the back of the 4-wheeler, the 2-inch ball, because it was just packed with snow and ice for some reason. And we're jamming this thing. We're hammering it with an ice scoop and stuff. I'm like, Tom, where's that blowtorch? Like 10 seconds of the blowtorch melted all that ice and saved the day. And I've used them for lighting my buddy heaters from time to time, because I'm just like probably most ice fishermen, I get lazy and I don't cover my sled up from time to time. And next thing I know, I get to the spot and it's just loaded with snow.
Yep.
And I'm like, how am I going to get this little tiny pilot light to go? Well, where's my blowtorch?
Pyro.
Yeah. So
And I think we all can agree that most underutilized thing that we need on the ice is probably just someone to cut holes for us. I think that's good. We should bring Mark along more.
someone.
Just someone else to cut holes for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mark's great.
I mean, I
Just
think
all-time auger duty.
Yeah, Jack, my kid, loves doing that. And I always love that with the Chronicles. Like, I've always loved Bart's angle of it. And he'll wear it on his shoulder like a badge of honor. He's like, I'm the worst one in this group at catching fish. So he's like, I know oftentimes I'm the guy with the auger or the live scope. I just know it. And he accepts his position and accepts his fate. He's like, I'm always the one that never catches them. So I always just let somebody else do the work and catch them, and I'll just cut the holes or run the forward-facing sonar. So pretty awesome. And we were talking for an hour and 15 minutes. It didn't last long, huh, guys?
No.
Flew by.
Yeah. So you guys got plans for the Christmas break, holiday? What's everyone doing?
I'm going to head up north to that Hackensack Longville area, do a little fishing.
What lakes again? We're trying to figure that out.
I'll tell you on the next podcast.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun. You heard that, folks.
Host.
Mark
holiday
Sandquist is on
reports.
next week's podcast talking about where he went this weekend to catch fish.
Love it.
Yeah, and probably come back and try to shoot a rooster or two.
Sweet. Nice.
Sweet. Yeah, love it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Ryan, how about you? What are you doing?
I am. I'm actually going to be chasing roosters on Friday, and then
Awesome.
from there, spend time with family, hang out, have a couple days off from work here at the office. So
Ryan got recently engaged.
yeah, big
So
news.
you get to
Big
now
news.
say this is my fiance at Christmas
Correct.
time.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm
First
not
time.
being sappy. That's a cool thing.
Yeah.
right. And you're
Nice.
going to do all your wedding planning, right? You're in charge of that. So you'll
Correct.
probably crack down every free second you have is going to be wedding
Correct.
planning,
Believe it or
right?
not, we've had quite a bit of wedding planning going on already. So
Sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We've
Oh,
got-
yeah.
Good for you, man.
Crazy.
Good for you.
Yeah, touring a venue on Saturday on the way down to Christmas. So
Someone is
Exciting
making
stuff.
an honest man out of Ryan after
Yeah,
all.
no
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we were first shocked at Mark. Mark's now married with kids. I mean, like,
Anything can happen.
Yeah, anything
Yeah.
can happen. What about you, Drew? What are you doing for Christmas?
Well, I'm going up north to grouse and maybe pheasant hunt this weekend. I thought about ice fishing, but I'm like, I have like an addictive personality, like for outdoors things. Like I've told people before, like in the spring, I'm like sturgeon fishing. Like every
True story.
waking moment, I'm like, I need to get back to the rainy. Got to get back to the rainy. And then it goes to like walleye fishing for like a month. I'm like, I got to catch walleyes. Got to catch walleyes. And then it goes to bass fishing and so on and so forth, and bow hunting. And now I just got into this whole bird thing, and now I'm so close to success. And my version of success is I just want to shoot one.
I would too.
I came close, but I'm honestly putting in the, like, I know it's a grind, right? Like you put in a lot of miles, a lot of time in the field, and
This can be a tough time in the year, though. I mean, if you're just starting now and you're, past the midway point in December,
He's trying to shoot one.
yeah, I'm trying, bro. I owe it to my dog.
Constructive criticism.
Yeah, like I'm like, Gus, dude, we walked 10 miles last weekend. I'm sorry, man. Like, you're not doing the greatest job, but you don't know any better. I don't really know any better, but I think if we keep walking, we're gonna have a chance.
I feel like I
So-
could stalk and shoot a chicken.
I mean,
I think I'd have a shot at that.
Talk to John Holmgren. He got like 10 in his yard. Anyways, so I'm going to try to do that. And then after I hopefully succeed with that, I'm going to ice fish, because actually the bird season ends at the end of this month. So there's not much time to do that anyways.
it's in Minnesota. So, yeah, your days are numbered. You got to get out
I know.
there.
And I cannot wait till next year. Looking at that, it's going to be bad if I can't
Another
get one.
addiction for Drew Aspinwall.
Oh no. So
Dun,
yeah,
dun,
I'm gonna try to
dun.
do that, and then I actually have to come back home for Christmas Eve. My mom let me know that. I was like, dang, well, what if I don't get one? Like, come on. I can hopefully show up with the grouse or something. I don't know. Grandma cook it up for me.
Sounds kind of good.
Yeah. So then, then we're back in the office next week doing stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing the Christmas thing with in-laws on New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. We have 4 kids, so it's obviously a madhouse at our house in the morning. Then go to my parents', and then I'm actually dipping out to Lake of the Woods for 3 days to hang out with Midwest Outdoors and Greg Jones and do a little fishing, a little filming.
I heard the bite's been really good.
I heard it's been phenomenal. I mean, we'll be shuttled out. We're not driving out. It sounds like right now things could change by Tuesday. That probably not. We'll be shuttled out. And then honestly, I come back. I took some time off next week. I got a handful of guide trips, New Year's Eve, and then back to the start of the new year, and more fun begins. So a lot of fun stuff going on, I think, down the pipeline. So this was awesome, guys. Thank you so much. And like
thanks,
Drew
guys.
said to begin, he wasn't lying. Ryan and Mark were eating lunch in the break room today, and I walked up to him. I said, "You guys want to be on a podcast?" And I think I got laughs right away. And I think Mark actually is like, "I'm not a chance, dude." And then I'm like, "No, this will be fun." And we were going to do this for 15 minutes. It was, "Hey, you want to make an appearance on the podcast?" "Yeah, we'll swing it." Well, here we are, an hour and 20 minutes into a podcast. Had a whole lot of fun.
Great.
So thank you guys. You were great to have on. And thanks for everyone that's tuned in so far this year, because this will probably be the last one of the year.
Last one of 2023.
Last one of the year. We'll take a little break here over the holidays and come back at you after the first of the year. We're going to get Mike Roger on. Don't worry. I know Mike's excited. He's got a lot of stuff to tell. We got a bunch of other ones kind of in the hopper. We're thinking about some great stuff.
Tournament ice fishing stuff.
Tournament stuff.
We got to see what Durham's doing. He's probably trying to film some up in Nevis.
Probably
and
trying to
whatnot.
finish being a teacher. You know, he's a kindergarten teacher up there. I can't imagine his time right now is probably precious with the kids. I totally get it. But we'll have more stuff. And as always, if you want to see something or hear about something, let us know. I mean, we'd love to actually structure one of these podcasts off of something you want to hear. So everything we've done up to this point, 34 episodes, is just podcasts we put together. So if people out there want to hear about something specific,
I'd say the best way would be drop a comment in on YouTube.
Okay.
Or if you see the post shared on Instagram or Facebook, drop a comment there as well.
Yeah.
We read them.
Yep.
So it's a great way to interact. So
sweet. Well, there's another episode of the Ice Team podcast. Everybody have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. And thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you in 2024.